Every day we set goals. We promise ourselves we'll finally finish that project, learn that new skill, or take a big step toward success. But then, our phone buzzes, notifications pile up, and hours slip away. Distractions steal our focus and our dreams. Deep Work by Newport is the answer. This audiobook reveals how some people achieve extraordinary results in less time, and how you can train your brain to focus deeply in a distracted world. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit subscribe. It's free for you, but it truly motivates me as a new creator. Now, let's begin Deep Work. We live in a time of constant connection. Notifications, messages, and endless streams of information compete for our attention every second. Yet beneath the noise lies a profound truth. In today's economy, the ability to focus without distraction on demanding tasks is one of the most valuable skills a person can possess. Newport calls this deep work. Why is deep work so valuable? Because our world is being transformed by what economists Eric Brynjolfsson and Andrew McAfee describe as the Great Restructuring. Technology is advancing so rapidly that it is reshaping the very structure of work. Entire categories of jobs are being automated. Others are being outsourced or replaced by artificial intelligence. The workers who thrive are those who can adapt quickly, learn hard things efficiently, and deliver at an elite level. Newport identifies three groups of people who consistently win in this new landscape. The first group is high-skilled workers. These are individuals like Nate Silver, the statistician who rose to prominence by mastering complex data analytics. His success came from not superficial multitasking, but from years of cultivating focus, allowing him to interpret data in ways others could not. The second group is the superstars. These are people like David Heinemeier Hansson, the creator of the Ruby on Rails programming framework. His deep concentration and mastery of programming led to a tool that shaped the modern web. Superstars stand out in a global market where digital platforms reward only the very best. The third group is the owners of capital, investors like John Doerr, who can identify promising technologies early and invest with precision. Their ability to assess opportunities requires deep thought, far beyond the surface-level scanning that dominates most people's workdays. These groups are different, but they all rely on the same foundation: the power of deep work. Newport explains that deep work delivers two rare and critical abilities. The first is the capacity to master hard things quickly. When you engage in intense focus, free from distraction, your brain strengthens neural pathways. This process allows you to absorb complicated information and develop skills at remarkable speed. Without deep work, you may try to learn, but you'll always be interrupted, and true mastery will slip away. The second ability is the power to produce at an elite level. Consider the research of psychologist Anders Ericsson, who studied world-class performers. He discovered that expertise is built through deliberate practice, sessions of intense, focused effort that stretch one's limits. This principle applies not just to athletes and musicians, but to knowledge workers as well. If you want to write a groundbreaking book, design innovative technology, or launch a business, you need those uninterrupted stretches of time where you can dive deep, refine your ideas, and push yourself to new levels. Contrast this with the modern office. Many professionals spend their days juggling emails, meetings, and instant messages. These shallow tasks give the illusion of productivity but rarely create lasting value. Newport highlights the danger of attention residue, the mental drag that occurs when you switch from one task to another. Even after you move on, part of your mind remains stuck on the previous activity. This residue reduces your ability to think clearly and slows your progress. Multiply this effect across dozens of daily task switches, and your brain never has a chance to reach its full potential. Deep work, then, is not simply a productivity trick.
It is a life skill that separates those who succeed from those who fall behind. It allows you to stay relevant in a rapidly changing economy, to outlearn your competition, and to produce results that few others can match. Imagine two professionals. The first spends their day rushing from meeting to meeting, firing off quick responses and endlessly checking their phone. At the end of the day, they are exhausted but have little to show for it. The second deliberately carves out time for deep work. In that focused time, they master a new programming language, develop a business strategy, or write a draft of a book chapter. After months and years, the difference between the two is enormous. Cal Newport makes it clear, those who embrace deep work will be the winners of the 21st century. Those who cannot will be left behind in a sea of shallow distractions.
Chapter 2. Deep work is rare. If deep work is so valuable, you might think it would be a top priority in the modern workplace. But in reality, the opposite is true. Deep work is becoming alarmingly rare. Modern business culture often rewards shallow activity and constant communication rather than long stretches of focused effort. Consider the modern office. Many companies proudly embrace the open office design. Facebook, Square, and other giants promote it as a way to increase collaboration and creativity. But studies tell a different story. Open offices create a flood of distractions, constant chatter, people walking by, the ping of incoming messages. Instead of promoting focus, they destroy it. Employees find themselves unable to sustain concentration, trapped in a cycle of interruptions. Then there is the culture of instant messaging. Tools like Slack and Microsoft Teams promise to streamline communication, but they often do the opposite. Imagine being deep in thought, working on a challenging project, when a small notification pops up. Hey, quick question. That tiny disruption forces your brain to switch gears. Research shows that even brief interruptions can dramatically extend the time it takes to finish a task. A few seconds of distraction can mean minutes or even hours of lost momentum. Another trend eroding deep work is the pressure to maintain a social media presence. Writers are told to constantly tweet. Journalists are expected to cultivate their brand. Employees feel they must stay visible online to remain relevant. This expectation pulls people away from the meaningful work they were hired to do, replacing it with shallow gestures that consume attention but create little value. Newport introduces a concept he calls the metric black hole. Businesses can easily measure things like how many emails employees send, how quickly they reply to messages, or how many meetings they attend. But they cannot easily measure the deep, thoughtful work that leads to breakthroughs and lasting results. As a consequence, organizations gravitate toward what can be measured, even if it doesn't matter much. Activity becomes a proxy for productivity. Employees begin to confuse being busy with being effective. This creates what Newport calls the principle of least resistance. In the absence of clear incentives to pursue depth, workers default to the easiest path, staying connected, responding quickly, and filling their time with visible busyness. It feels safer to answer emails immediately than to carve out hours for silent concentration. No one questions an overflowing inbox, but people do raise eyebrows when you disappear into solitude for deep work. The problem is that shallow work scales, but deep work does not. Anyone can send emails, sit in meetings, or scroll through updates. These activities create the comforting illusion of progress because they keep you busy and responsive. But only deep work produces lasting value. When everyone spends their day in shallow waters, the rare individuals who can dive deep gain an enormous advantage. Newport also points out the cultural obsession with the internet. In many organizations, there's an unspoken assumption that everything online is inherently good. More connectivity, more platforms, more interaction. These are praised without question. But this mindset overlooks the hidden costs. Constant connectivity scatters attention, erodes focus, and trains the brain to expect novelty rather than depth.
It's a paradox. The modern economy rewards depth, yet most workplaces are structured to destroy it. The ability to focus without distraction is more powerful than ever, but environments are designed to prevent it. This is why deep work is becoming so rare, and that scarcity makes it all the more valuable. For individuals, this is actually good news. If you can resist the cultural pull toward distraction and instead commit yourself to cultivating deep work, you set yourself apart from the crowd. You become part of a small minority capable of producing results that others cannot. In a world addicted to shallowness, your ability to go deep becomes your greatest competitive advantage.
Chapter 3. Deep work is meaningful. Imagine a blacksmith standing in his workshop. The air is thick with heat as sparks fly from the forge. Each hammer strike echoes through the barn, ringing with purpose. The craftsman is Rick Furr, one of the world's finest blacksmiths. He spends weeks, sometimes months, forging Viking swords using ancient techniques. A single mistake, a moment's distraction, can ruin the entire piece. And yet, for Furr, this work is profoundly meaningful. Cal Newport begins Chapter 3 with Furr's story to show us something powerful. There is meaning hidden in depth. When we fully engage with challenging work, we find purpose. When we immerse ourselves in distraction, we feel hollow. Deep work is not only valuable and rare, it is deeply human. Rick Furr's craft illustrates this truth. His process is slow, difficult, and unforgiving, but it is precisely these qualities that give it meaning. Each hammer blow is deliberate. Each step requires focus and skill. The result is not just a sword, but a work of art infused with the essence of its maker. Newport argues that knowledge workers can experience the same sense of fulfillment if they approach their work with depth. Here lies a problem. Most modern knowledge work lacks the tangible feedback of traditional crafts. A blacksmith sees the blade take shape. A carpenter runs their hand over polished wood. But the average office worker spends hours answering emails or sitting in meetings, activities that blur together and offer no lasting sense of accomplishment. This lack of clarity often makes knowledge work feel empty. Shallow tasks strip meaning from our days. Responding instantly to messages, scrolling endlessly through feeds, or updating spreadsheets may feel urgent, but rarely feels important. It leaves us restless, drained, and unsatisfied. Deep work, on the other hand, taps into our need for focus and progress. It gives us something solid to hold on to, a sense that we are moving forward, growing, and building something worthwhile. To explain why deep work feels so fulfilling, Newport draws on the concept of flow, described by psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Flow is that mental state where you are so absorbed in what you're doing that time seems to disappear. You are challenged but not overwhelmed, stretched but not broken. Flow creates joy and meaning. And the activities most likely to induce flow, they are the ones that require intense concentration, the very essence of deep work. Deep work, then, is not just about producing more, it's about living more fully. Newport cites writer Winifred Gallagher, who, after a cancer diagnosis, concluded that who you are, what you think, feel, and do, what you love, is the sum of what you focus on. In other words, our lives are defined by where we direct our attention. If we give it away to shallow distractions, our lives become shallow. If we invest it in deep, meaningful efforts, our lives become rich. Craftsmanship is one path to meaning, but Newport emphasizes it can be found in any field. Programmers, writers, scientists, teachers, all can adopt a craftsman's mindset. The point is not the material being worked on, but the depth of engagement. A programmer refining code with precision, a teacher carefully shaping a lesson, or a scientist running experiments with care, each mirrors the blacksmith at the forge. The material is different, but the meaning comes from the same source: deep, focused attention. Dreyfus and Kelly, authors of All Things Shining, argue that craftsmanship connects us to something greater than ourselves. It roots meaning not in fleeting nudes or personal whims, but in dedication to skill and excellence. This is a powerful antidote to the emptiness many feel in modern work. Newport contrasts the deep life with the shallow life. The shallow life is reactive, scrolling, replying, multitasking, living on the surface. It feels busy, but often leaves us anxious and unsatisfied. The deep life is slower, more deliberate, more demanding, but also more rewarding. It requires discipline and courage, because choosing depth often means resisting cultural norms. But in return, it offers fulfillment, growth, and purpose. Deep work, Newport argues, is not just a professional strategy, it is a philosophy of living. To focus deeply is to honor your potential, to craft your life with intention, and to resist the pull of distraction that cheapens existence. In the end, the choice is stark: embrace shallowness and drift, or embrace depth and build a meaningful life.
The rules of deep work. Up to this point, Cal Newport has built the case that deep work is valuable, rare, and meaningful. It is the skill that allows you to thrive in the modern economy, stand out in your field, and live a fulfilling life. But understanding its importance is not enough. Knowing that deep work matters does not magically make you capable of doing it. Why? Because deep work is hard. Our environment is full of distractions. Our willpower is finite. Our culture rewards quick responses and shallow activity. If you simply intend to focus, you will fail. Deep work requires strategy. It requires structure. It requires rules. That's why the second half of the book lays out 4 essential rules, practical frameworks to help you embed deep work into your daily routine. These rules are not abstract theories. They are concrete practices drawn from history, science, and real-world examples. Each one shows you how to create the conditions for depth in a world that constantly pulls you toward shallowness. And it all begins with the first rule. Rule number 1: work deeply. If you want to succeed at deep work, you must treat it with the seriousness of a craft. You cannot rely on willpower alone. You must build systems that protect your focus and allow you to consistently return to the state of deep concentration. To illustrate this, Newport introduces an idea from architect David Duane: the eudaimonia machine. The word eudaimonia comes from Aristotle, meaning a life well lived. Duane imagined a building designed entirely to support deep work. Inside, there are 5 sequential rooms. The first is a gallery, displaying the highest quality work to inspire. The second is a salon, a place for conversation and idea exchange. The third is a library, filled with resources. The fourth is an office for lighter tasks. And finally, at the back, are small chambers designed solely for intense, uninterrupted focus. The message of the eudaimonia machine is clear. Deep work deserves an environment, a ritual, and a structure. You cannot stumble into it accidentally.
You must design your life around it. Newport outlines 4 philosophies of scheduling deep work. The monastic philosophy is the most extreme. It involves cutting out nearly all shallow obligations and devoting life entirely to depth. Think of a writer like Neil Stephenson, who is famously unreachable by email and spends months immersed in his novels. The bimodal philosophy splits time between periods of deep work and everything else. Carl Jung practiced this approach, balancing his busy life in Zurich with long stretches of focused writing in a secluded retreat tower. The rhythmic philosophy is more structured, building daily habits of deep work, say 2 or 3 hours every morning, no matter what. This method leverages routine, making deep work automatic. And finally, the journalistic philosophy is opportunistic. Like a journalist who must write whenever a window of time appears, this approach fits deep work into unpredictable schedules. It's challenging, but powerful for those with busy, chaotic lives. Whichever philosophy you choose, rituals are essential. Great minds often had strange habits. Victor Hugo locked away his clothes, forcing himself to stay home and write. Maya Angelou rented hotel rooms to work in solitude. These rituals reduce decision fatigue and signal to your brain, now it is time for depth. Another tool Newport highlights is the grand gesture. Sometimes, making a bold move creates the focus you need. J.K. Rowling famously checked into an expensive hotel to finish Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, removing herself from distraction and raising the stakes. The high cost, both financial and symbolic, transformed her intention into action. Deep work also thrives on collaboration, but only when done with intention. Newport points to how productive thinkers sometimes work side by side, pushing each other deeper. Collaboration does not mean endless meetings. It means carefully structured exchanges that spark insight and then send people back into solitude to think. Execution is another critical component. Newport borrows from the 4 disciplines of execution: focus on the wildly important, act on lead measures, keep a compelling scoreboard, and create a rhythm of accountability. These disciplines keep deep work from being vague and make it measurable, trackable, and real. Finally, downtime matters. The brain is not a machine that can run at full power forever. Just as athletes need rest for muscles to grow, the mind needs breaks to restore focus. Newport insists on shutdown rituals, a conscious decision at the end of the day to stop working, allowing the unconscious mind to process and recharge. The lesson of rule number 1 is simple but profound. You must build a life that supports depth. Choose a philosophy, create rituals, make bold gestures, track your progress, rest deliberately. Treat deep work not as something to squeeze in when you have time, but as the core of your professional existence. Work deeply, and you will unlock levels of productivity and meaning that few ever reach.
Rule number 2. Embrace boredom. If you want to master the ability to do deep work, you must first rewire your relationship with your own mind. The truth is uncomfortable. Most of us have forgotten how to be bored. The moment silence appears, we reach for a phone. Waiting in line? Scroll. Stuck in traffic? Check messages. A lull in conversation? Swipe through notifications. Modern life has trained us to fill every crack of boredom with stimulation. But here's the paradox. If your brain becomes addicted to constant distraction, it loses the ability to focus when it matters most. Deep work requires extended periods of concentration, yet if you've trained your mind to expect novelty every few minutes, You will fail when it's time to sit down and think deeply. Cal Newport's message is blunt. To succeed at deep work, you must embrace boredom. You must retrain your brain to tolerate the absence of stimulation, to resist the pull of distraction, and to find comfort in stillness. One story that illustrates this comes from Adam Marlin, a lawyer in New York. Every morning at 5 a.m., before heading to the office, Marlin would join a group of men at a synagogue to study ancient Jewish texts. The work was difficult, the hours were long, and the discipline was relentless. Yet Marlin discovered something powerful. Even though he held 3 Ivy League degrees, he realized his peers, ordinary men with no elite credentials, were often sharper and quicker in their thinking. Why? Because years of daily study had trained their minds for intense focus. This practice of embracing boredom and returning to difficult texts had built mental muscle that no prestigious education could replace. The science backs this up. Clifford Nass, a Stanford researcher, studied chronic multitaskers. He found that constant switching between tasks rewires the brain in damaging ways. Multitaskers lose the ability to filter irrelevant information, struggle to manage working memory, and find it almost impossible to sustain attention. In other words, the more you flee boredom with distraction, the less capable you become of focusing at all. So how do you break this cycle? Newport suggests a radical shift in strategy. Most people think they should occasionally take breaks from distraction. They tell themselves, "I'll put my phone away and focus for an hour." But Newport argues for the opposite. Instead of scheduling breaks from distraction, schedule breaks from focus. That means you don't just absent-mindedly reach for your phone whenever you feel the urge. Instead, you deliberately plan when you will allow yourself to check email, browse, or scroll. By boxing in your distractions, you strengthen your ability to resist them the rest of the time. Over weeks and months, your brain begins to heal. You stop craving constant novelty. You relearn how to sit with silence. Another powerful strategy is what Newport calls productive meditation. Imagine going for a walk, a jog, or even washing the dishes. Instead of letting your mind wander aimlessly, you direct it toward a single complex problem. You wrestle with it as you move. Each time your attention drifts, you pull it back. This exercise sharpens concentration like a whetstone sharpens a blade. It transforms ordinary downtime into training sessions for focus. Newport also points to the example of Theodore Roosevelt. While at Harvard, Roosevelt carried a punishing workload: sports, clubs, social events, and a full academic schedule. Yet he still managed to achieve top grades. How? He embraced what Newport calls Rooseveltian intensity. When Roosevelt worked, he worked furiously, often in short, focused bursts surrounded by chaos. The tight deadlines forced him to summon immense concentration. This intensity trained him to go deep on command. You can adopt the same strategy by setting challenging deadlines for yourself. Give a task far less time than you think it needs, then eliminate all distractions and push yourself to finish. The pressure ignites focus, strengthening your mental stamina for future deep work sessions. Finally, Newport highlights the role of memory training. Consider the art of memorizing a deck of cards using visualization techniques, creating vivid mental images and placing them in imagined locations, like rooms of a familiar house. These exercises, while seemingly unrelated to knowledge work, stretch your attention and prove that focus is a trainable skill. The lesson of rule number 2 is clear. Your ability to concentrate is like a muscle. If you constantly feed it distractions, it withers. If you challenge it,
By embracing boredom, resisting urges, practicing productive meditation, and seeking intensity, it grows stronger. The modern world will never stop trying to steal your attention, but you can take back control. When you learn to be bored, you become free. You gain the rare power to direct your mind where you choose, for as long as you choose. And that power is the foundation of deep work.
Rule 3. Quit social media. If you want to protect your ability to do deep work, you must be ruthless about the tools you allow into your life. The modern world is full of digital platforms that promise connection, entertainment, and opportunity. But behind these promises lies a dangerous truth. Most of these tools are designed not to serve you, but to capture your attention and hold it hostage. Cal Newport calls this the any benefit mindset. This mindset says, if a tool offers me any benefit at all, I should use it. Facebook helps me stay in touch with friends. Twitter gives me news updates. Instagram keeps me inspired. LinkedIn may help me network. Each of these statements might be true, but the hidden costs are rarely considered. Hours lost to scrolling, attention shattered by constant pings, mental energy drained by endless comparisons. The any benefit mindset ignores the heavy price of distraction. Instead, Newport argues for what he calls the craftsman approach to tool selection. A craftsman does not use every tool in the shop just because it's available. He selects only those that serve his craft with precision. Likewise, you should only adopt digital tools if their benefits substantially outweigh their costs and if they directly support the things that truly matter in your life. One vivid example comes from Baratunde Thurston, a comedian and entrepreneur. In 2013, overwhelmed by his online life, Thurston quit the internet for 25 days. At the time, he was juggling multiple digital identities, tens of thousands of emails, thousands of tweets, hundreds of Facebook posts. His life looked impressive on the outside, but felt fragmented on the inside. So, he disconnected. At first, the silence felt strange, but soon something remarkable happened. He rediscovered simple pleasures. He noticed strangers around him. He ate meals without photographing them. He felt his stress melt away. When he returned online, he did so with new clarity. The internet had been shaping his life more than he realized, and most of it wasn't worth the cost. Newport insists you don't need to quit everything cold turkey, like Thurston. Instead, he suggests experiments. Try giving up one social media platform for 30 days. At the end, ask yourself 2 questions. Did my life get noticeably worse without it? And did anyone actually care that I wasn't using it? If the answer to both is no, you should probably quit permanently. He also recommends applying the law of the vital few, inspired by the Pareto principle. Most of the value in your life comes from a small number of activities. Focus your attention there. If a tool doesn't directly help you achieve those vital goals, cut it out, no matter how entertaining or socially expected it may be. Another principle is to stop using the internet for low-quality entertainment. When you're tired or bored, it's easy to sink hours into scrolling or binge-watching, but this trains your brain to expect cheap stimulation and leaves you with little to show for your time. Instead, Newport suggests cultivating high-quality leisure. Reading, walking, exercising, spending time with friends and family, or practicing a hobby. These activities restore energy without stealing focus. Remember, social media companies are not neutral platforms. They are billion-dollar businesses engineered to capture as much of your attention as possible. Every notification, every like, every infinite scroll is designed to exploit your psychological weaknesses. If you are not deliberate, your mind becomes their product. Quitting social media is not about rejecting technology altogether. It is about reclaiming control. It is about refusing to let your attention be scattered across 1,000 shallow interactions and instead directing it toward the deep, meaningful efforts that matter most. The craftsman approach demands courage. It might feel uncomfortable to step back from platforms everyone else uses.
You might worry about missing out, but in reality, what you gain is far greater: time, clarity, and the mental space to do deep work. In the end, the rule is simple. Don't let digital tools choose you. Choose them. And more often than not, choose fewer.
Rule number 4. Drain the shallows. Shallow work seductive hai. It feels productive. It fills your calendar. It makes you look busy. But here's the truth. Shallow work rarely moves the needle. Shallow work is answering emails, sitting in endless meetings, updating reports, checking notifications. It's low value, easily replicable, and cognitively undemanding. In contrast, deep work produces the breakthroughs, the creativity, and the results that actually matter. Cal Newport's fourth rule is a challenge. You must drain the shallows. That means cutting shallow tasks down to the bare minimum, refusing to let them consume your best hours, and reclaiming that time for work that truly counts. One striking example comes from the software company 37 Signals, now known as Basecamp. In 2007, the founders decided to experiment. They reduced the company's work week from 5 days to 4. Many feared productivity would collapse. Instead, the opposite happened. With fewer hours available, employees naturally cut out shallow tasks. Meetings were shortened or eliminated. Emails were streamlined. People focused on what truly mattered. Astonishingly, the company got just as much done in 4 days as they had in 5. Cal Newport argues that shallow work expands to fill the time you give it. If you schedule 8 hours for your workday, shallow tasks will creep in to occupy much of it. But if you enforce constraints, limiting time, blocking off hours for depth, you force yourself to prioritize. This is why he insists, schedule every minute of your day. At first, this sounds rigid, but Newport doesn't mean you must stick to the plan perfectly. Instead, scheduling is a way to become conscious of how you're spending your time. When every block has a purpose, whether deep work, shallow tasks, or leisure, you see clearly how much of your life is being swallowed by the shallow. Another powerful technique is to calculate the depth of your tasks. Ask yourself, how long would it take to train a smart college graduate to perform this activity? If the answer is not long, then the task is shallow. This doesn't mean you should avoid it entirely. Shallow work is unavoidable, but it does mean you should minimize it and never confuse it with the work that defines your value. Newport also recommends creating a shallow work budget. Sit down with your manager or with yourself if you're independent and decide what percentage of your time should be spent on shallow tasks. Maybe it's 30%, maybe less. By setting this budget, you force yourself to protect the rest of your hours for deep work. Another strategy is fixed schedule productivity. Instead of working endlessly until everything is done, you set a hard boundary for your day, say finishing at 5:30 p.m. This fixed schedule forces you to make choices. You can't waste the day on shallow tasks because you know your time is limited. Like Basecamp's 4-day week, the constraint drives focus and efficiency. Communication is another sinkhole of shallowness. Email in particular is a black hole of time. Newport suggests becoming hard to reach. This doesn't mean being rude, it means being intentional. For example, you can use sender filters, so only important emails reach you. You can respond with process-centric replies, clarifying next steps so conversations don't spiral endlessly. And you can deliberately ignore or decline messages that don't truly require your input. The principle is simple. Shallow work is not evil, but it is dangerous when it dominates. If you treat all tasks as equal, you dilute your energy and rob yourself of the focus required to achieve excellence. By draining the shallows, you take back control. You stop mistaking busyness for productivity. You stop scattering your attention across dozens of trivial tasks. Instead, you channel your best hours into the rare, demanding, and valuable efforts that lead to real results. In the end, rule number 4 is about courage. It is easy to say yes to every meeting, to reply instantly to every message, to fill your day with visible activity. It is harder to say no, to guard your time, to insist on depth. But that courage is the difference between mediocrity and mastery. Drain the shallows and you create the space for greatness.
At the heart of deep work lies a simple truth. The deep life is not just productive, it is meaningful. Throughout the book, Cal Newport has shown us why deep work is valuable, rare, and fulfilling. He has given us rules for protecting our focus, training our mind, and cutting away the noise. But the conclusion is not just about strategy. It is about vision. What kind of life do you want to live? Newport tells the story of Bill Gates in the 1970s. As a young man, Gates discovered the Altair personal computer and saw an opportunity. He locked himself away for 2 months, working with his partner Paul Allen to write software that would eventually launch Microsoft. Gates often worked until exhaustion, sometimes falling asleep at his keyboard. Yet this intense focus gave birth to one of the most powerful companies in history. Gates succeeded not because he was the smartest man alive, but because he had the capacity to dive deeper and stay longer than almost anyone else. Deep work was Gates' superpower, and it can be yours too. Newport also reflects on his own life as a professor and writer. He describes how, during a particularly demanding period, he recommitted to deep work. By setting strict schedules, eliminating distractions, and carving out time for research and writing, he more than doubled his academic output. Even with the added responsibilities of teaching and family life, he produced at a level many of his peers could not match. His success was not built on working longer hours, but on working more deeply. The lesson is clear. Deep work is not just a professional advantage, it is a path to excellence in any domain. It allows you to achieve more than your peers in less time. It enables you to master skills, create value, and build a reputation that stands out in a crowded world. But deep work is not easy. Choosing it means swimming against the current of modern culture. It means resisting the comfort of busyness, the lure of constant connectivity, and the temptation of shallow distraction. It requires discipline, sacrifice, and courage. At times, it will feel uncomfortable, but discomfort is the price of growth. And the reward? A life that matters. A life where your days are not consumed by emails and scrolling, but dedicated to creating, learning, and contributing at the highest level. A life where your attention is not scattered across trivialities, but invested in the things that truly define you. Newport leaves us with a powerful message. To live deeply is to live well. You can choose to drift through life on the surface, busy but unfulfilled, always chasing the next notification. Or you can choose to go deep, to focus, to master, to create. This choice will determine not just your career, but your legacy. In the end, deep work is more than a skill. It is a philosophy of life. And for those willing to embrace it, the rewards are extraordinary.